Okay. I don't know if anybody's actually going to get in here with me. The governor of California, about an hour ago, issued a state of self slash neighborly martial law, where basically he says peer pressure each other into martial law. Which, yeah, sure, you by calling it martial law, that's a little bit contradictory when it's self isolation slash neighbor isolation. Just really strange times because we're seeing we're seeing what our myth is. We're seeing what our what the fabric of our current society is, which is to regulate each other. And that's all well and good. But we'll see how it goes because it will probably get to a state of actual martial law. I don't know if I want to get out of California before that happens. Anyway, didn't know if anybody wanted to talk about that, but I've been meaning to make a video about why I started this whole little group in the first place. I've never even done this live thing on my own, so I'm trying to see if there's like anyone in here. It says one viewer, it looks like. I don't think that's me. Anyway, so started this group last summer, and the idea was one thing that I kind of came to realize in my life at that point was the best thing that I found that I could do for myself was to find a way to help other people, especially in a meaningful way that you can't really get from just the internet or whatever. Because there's so many things in life where we don't have tight-knit families so much like we used to. And, we can theorize all the million different reasons why that may be or may not be. But we don't have the tight-knit families or communities or any type of village or nation like we did throughout our history, and even like other parts of the world do. And so throughout our history, when we would go through strange situations in life or difficult periods of time in life, we would go to either parents or aunt, uncle, whatever, and we would say, what do I do about this situation? Which could be anything: getting pregnant, someone dying, difficult situations, or even just the day-to-day getting through life that every day is really kind of unknown. And that just kind of echoes to me today as we really need each other more than ever, especially now when it's like we're supposed to be isolated. Sure, we've got to be isolated, but that's only physically. So if we can be there for each other, even strangers in some way, not necessarily in material ways, but just to be able to talk with a level head, whether that's talk about the strange things going on, talk about the strange possibilities, talk about just anything. if I want to get really personal, when what really kind of triggered this, I don't know if I mean that word triggered the way that's meant nowadays usually, but really what really kind of brought about what I was trying to get at with this group and still somewhat trying to figure out. I had a close friend pass away from cancer last May, and I know I'm going to be bouncing around a little bit in time, and if anybody else wants to contribute or ask questions, that's fine too. But I spoke at the funeral, like actually as the eulogy, and it was a real honor to do that, not just for him and my family or his family, but also because when my mother passed away about 10 years earlier, like I wanted to, say a few words and I couldn't get out the words. So I did that. And then after that, I helped his family with a few things, helped them with a place that they needed temporarily. As I was helping to manage some Airbnb apartments at the time. And anyway, so I helped the family get through that time. And also at that time, I was going through, just finished a breakup after a divorce, is like my rebound breakup from my divorce. And then it's like, so I kind of felt at that time last summer, to some degree, I would think like a lot of people are feeling now. But what I was trying to get at, well, actually, I'm sorry. This was a year and a half ago, May before last. But then, so after a year, I sort of started this group. So all I was doing was reading books and looking for answers. I mean, you could do a montage of like, I would just go into libraries, I would get audiobooks, YouTube lectures, anything. And I was just trying to kind of rebuild the way to look at the world, especially in that I feel like we need a way to be able to help each other at different times. And not just in, I don't know, we need it. It's because we don't have a myth anymore. And I know that's kind of sounds silly to some people, but what I mean is in the past, in human history, each village or tribe or nation would relatively have a tribal or national religion, and not that that's like necessarily the right thing, but what it did was that in strange times, like someone everybody knows in the community, whether it's a friend, a basketball star, anybody, people would know what to do. People would know, like, in strange times, you gather around these sets of beliefs. In strange times, you gather around these principles. In strange times, or life is strange. So ongoing, the myth, whether that's a religious myth, tribal myth, or whatever, it would provide the moral foundation for the community as to how to act. But right now, we don't have that. I mean, you can get that in maybe a local church or a local small sub community, but then you're just divided into a sub community. So I don't know if the word is necessary that we need a myth, but we need better ways to talk and better language of how to communicate to each other, especially in these kind of strange times. So thought I might be able to get more people on for this and maybe do some kind of questions and that type of thing. But anyway, back to the governor's order for just a minute, and then I'll wrap this up and probably do another one tomorrow. But so basically what the governor's order comes down to is this: self-imposed / neighbor-imposed stay in your home martial law. Which I halfway appreciate that, and that we could still go about our necessary business. And you know, I halfway understand it too, because I was out just a little bit last night for necessary things, and you know, there were people like street racing, you know, so and also it's like people have been going to the beach here in California, people have been going on hikes, people have been going to the golf course. That's what I think is a little bit extreme. When we can't even just go as a family to the outdoors. And I think he mentioned that the governor in that little speech is like, don't go to the beach, basically. And it's like jail. It's like jail. I mean, sure, we can go down to the store. Maybe some people have their necessary jobs, but it sucks. And there's only been 1,000 in California diagnosed so far, I believe. But he believes, the governor, that number can get, he was saying a lot of numbers, because there was the numbers of, okay, we're a state of approximately 40 million residents, and he was saying the numbers of infected will get to be approximately at least half of that, so approximately 20 million infected at some point. And he's afraid, according to his data, that there could be, if anybody, I see there's 3 people on here. I don't even know if anybody can hear me. I'm just kind of like talking into this. Can I even comment? Spare again. Anyway, I'm gonna go on my. Anyway, so the governor, he says, don't even go to the beach. Okay, the numbers. He's estimating it could get to the point of over 20 million infected, and then he's afraid that at some point of those 20 million infected, we could need anywhere from 20 to 30,000 hospital beds, which is well over capacity, and they're trying to get to the point where they can even lease hotel, motel, college dorms. But I mean, I don't know. If people are already self-isolated, and then you're going to move them from their homes into a college dorm or a hotel, motel, whatever, it's like, are we? I don't know. I just don't see it, that you would need everyone to leave their homes. It seems like they could have at-home care, at least in those situations. Hello from Australia. Can you even hear me, Elizabeth? I just thought I would do this, and I think one reason I wanted to do this too is because When I do videos, I do it almost too calmly, which is why I haven't done more that like I wanted to. But that's probably what we need now is like less of the freaking out. Okay, cool. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyway, I'm gonna probably do these more often, but maybe I'll plan out more to talk about. And I'm doing it on this StreamYard thing because at some point I would like to get a few people in here and have chats and discussions, especially at this time when, especially in certain areas, people are isolated and can't go outside. And if you want to give us any updates from Australia, that's cool. And at some point, yeah, I don't know about tonight, but probably tomorrow I'll do I'll try to do this like often if possible. Because yeah, I did one with a couple guys from the other groups, Connor and Jenner, and that was on Monday, and it was kind of a chat with the three of us, but we had a lot of technical difficulties because the internet was really bad, and so maybe that's what people a fear people have that's somewhat justified is if we lose good internet. Because if we lose good internet, especially nowadays when most people don't have cable TV, they have some type of streaming TV. So if we lose good internet, then it'll really be like jail. But I'm hoping, praying it won't come to that. Sup, diggity dog? Sounds like a good plan. I'd be interested in more open conversations. It just says Facebook user. You might have to join my group before I can see what your Facebook name is. Anyway, cool, yeah. Conversations. Also, I would like to have some conversations kind of about what's going on, checking on people, and some trying to not talk directly about these things so much. Like maybe I made a little post earlier about like some kind of a book club, talk about some books that we might be interested in, and I'm open to several different books if enough people want to get into a particular book, or just like YouTube lectures, watch YouTube lectures independently and then talk about them in this format. And I might need it more than most people because I've got my dog, but I'm living alone, and that's not like a pathetic cry for help. But I've got friends that I may go hang out with or have over. I don't know. We'll see. May even go get out of the state just to be with my family in the Midwest, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm glad the world is okay for now. It's just really weird. I'm going to do some videos on a lot of the issues like I normally post in my group, which is mostly related to Carl Jung and also Jordan Peterson. Like I said at the beginning of this video, that you can probably watch back later if you like. I would like to try to start putting together or help facilitating, not that I'm some expert or anything, other than I've read like a lot of books maybe about 100 books related to these issues in the past couple years, but a lot of times people get confused by the word myth or mythology, but we need to better be able to talk about our moral foundation and just how we all connect in our mind, spirit, our human struggle, whatever you might want to call it. And, because like I said a few minutes ago, when someone dies or strange things happen like this, I mean, people get by, but we don't really have a way to unify our language, our minds, our moral foundation. And I'm hoping that a lot of good can come out of this whole thing. I'll just say one other thing before I end it, which is a little off topic. Well, not really. Anyway, I posted last night and this morning about these malaria drugs that look promising as far as being able to treat coronavirus. And sometimes I'm a little bit antagonistic when I post just to get people's attention. Like I post about, I don't know, silly things about like, oh, look, it's not like universal basic income is gonna last more than a couple checks. Or look, the apocalypse is over, and kind of being silly. But one thing we learned from that potential even cure for this whole thing is that overdoses are a thing. And so, unfortunately, that's one thing that wasn't really talked about last night and this morning when the head of the research group yesterday and the president and the head of the FDA today talked about these malaria drugs that have promising trial results as far as possibly being able to help cure the coronavirus, but they didn't really talk about the overdoses. So that's just something people need to watch out for. I mean, you can overdose on almost anything. So there's not a lot of knowledge around that. But I mean, you can already, right now, I haven't done a lot with the dark web, but I know for sure you can get these malaria drugs on the dark web. You can get anything on the dark web. So, I mean, these malaria drugs, they're going to start going around, and people just need to be mindful to not overdose. It could be a very promising thing where maybe this will be over in a few weeks because of that. But anyway, I think we should just stay positive and be there for each other. I'll try to plan a better talking points, I guess, next time. And anyway, just stay calm. Oh, some people are, I've got messages from a couple people that are like, oh, it's not sexy to act like you're not afraid. And I think that's the wrong attitude. You've got to have a pragmatic approach in that you've got to, malaria drugs are not to be used. They are debunked. Okay, got it. They're still figuring that out. But in any case, they are, yeah, they're still doing a bunch of tests on that. Right, they're still figuring out the whole malaria thing. Their abilities there, and we'll see over the next couple weeks or so. But and thank you for that feedback. But yes, the malaria drugs, they are some aspects of it are promising, but we don't want to. There's two types of malaria drugs and one or two others that are showing promising trial results. That doesn't mean that that's the answer necessarily. That means that something from that could be a possibility. But what I'm more concerned about is the hysteria of like, oh look, I can get my hands on these drugs, take them, ga, 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 ga. And then you get people overdosing on them. Just like, people are being crazy about toilet paper for no reason right now. I mean, people can get their hands on those drugs, because I mean, right now you could, I don't know about right now with what's going on, but before this whole thing, you could get those same malaria drugs just by saying you're going to be traveling in an area where there could be these malaria insects and such things. So normally, as long as you're medication that could conflict with it, most people can get these drugs. Anyway, I'd just be a little bit concerned about the overdosing, especially since that's one thing people haven't really talked about. We don't know as far as that goes. There could be a potential treatment there or therapy there, but I think it's good to look at the positives when they come. Thank you. How could I be sick from COVID-19? I own 300. Yeah, exactly. This is what's silly. In England right now. In England, they are. Sure, I'll do that. I've never done this before. Anyway, in England, I feel like it could be a smarter model, in that, at least right now, may change over the next, I don't know, week or two. But at least right now, they're only isolating those that are at risk. They strictly isolate the elderly and those who, have underlying conditions, because regular people like me or you would only be a carrier, supposedly. I mean, we're still figuring all this out. But the reason us being a carrier or having mild symptoms, not even as bad as a common cold, would be that we could give to somebody else who's at risk. And sure, we don't want to do that, but yeah, in England right now, they've just isolated those who are really at risk, because then it's like the same result, except you don't have all the martial law for everyone else. And and in Italy, they're a little different. They're smokers, and they're normally socially non-distant of culture, I guess. So that probably has something to do with it. But even when they really imposed everyone being in their apartments, the curve still went up, as they say. Anyway, I'm hopeful, and I think we need to stay hopeful, because it'd be so easy to go down the fear rabbit holes. Yes, take it pragmatically. This is what I can control, and this is what I can do to be safe, be there for loved ones, friends, family, neighbors, whatever, and then just don't contribute to the hysteria. And I was even a lot more like, I don't know, I was maintaining a sense of humor about it too, because I think that's important. But I'm a little disappointed with our governor right now in California. Well, I don't know, I'm usually not fearful at all, but I'm just a little worried that we could have a martial law situation, but it's all just off these weird scientific artificial intelligence. See, it's like we put our lives in the hands of these artificial intelligences that say, oh, supposedly this many people could get infected and need hospital beds. I don't know if I'm buying it. I mean, okay, I'll do the math right now. There's 40 million people. I mean, that would be the max. Okay, 40 million people times 0.01. Yeah, that would be the total max. 40,000. I think the president's number is off because, I mean, he's really pushing it when he thinks we could get to 40,000 hospitalized. But anyway, right. Have a sense of humor about it, but do what you need to do. So in other words, be there for those who you can be there for. Take care of what you can take care of, and it's also a balance too, in that if most people are having a sense of humor about it, then you might want to counterbalance that. But what's going on right now is most people are freaking out in some way, losing their poop, and I can appreciate that because all the human beings are great, but they need to quit losing their poop. Here we have been told to self-isolate if you are elderly, poor immune system. Where is here, Elizabeth Murray? Oh, are you the Australia person? I think you are. Yes. See, I think that's the same thing that they did in England, although England is a little more strict probably than Australia at this point. But that makes sense because I don't know. I wasn't getting into the conspiracies, but I'm almost tempted to. Not of a lot of things other than like self-inflicted recession almost. But yes, okay. I don't know who this Facebook user is, but that's fine. But yeah, I think that's what we should do. And I think that's the smart thing for, hopefully we'll see that over the next, well, here's what'll happen though. In areas like probably Australia like that, and England, what you'll see is a lot more people get infected. And that can be good in a way that we can take all those people and, oh, hi, Alice. We can take all those people that more so get infected and we can learn from them. But of course, in those areas like Australia and at least England, if you're really isolating those that you should, then what'll be interesting to watch is the numbers of infected will probably go up quite a bit compared to other areas. Maybe not. But the fatalities will probably be about the same statistically. So I think that really makes sense, and I would hope that we can switch. I mean, 'Cause it's just not a debilitating thing. The symptoms are less than the common cold. I may have even already had it, by the way, like about a month ago or less. I mean, the thing is, too, right now it is spring and fall. People get cold and flu. And so people have those cold and flu symptoms, and they will come and go, whether that's just and it's not because of the weather necessarily. Some people say it's because of like viruses do better in the cold or whatever. It's because I'm not a scientist, but it is because of how our bodies work, where they go from being adapted to one sort of ecology or environment, and then you transition in this time of year and about November. I don't know if it's a little different in Sir Trex. Okay, I don't know why it says Facebook user instead of your name, because you're in my group. Young between 1940 in Italy or France today. There's a balance and the president's numbers are always, well, the thing about the numbers, we have no idea how many get infected. Like, if you look at the graph of certain countries where they confirmed higher numbers of infected, mainly that was, I think, Korea, of course, China too, which now we're running into these big issues. This is why there's a little bit of a, I don't know if you'd call it a culture war. I'm not sure what you mean by this, but there's a little bit of a culture war or something between China and the rest of the world because they didn't come out early. They try to keep this whole thing secret. And if they would have just, like, if this happened, if this started here in America, then we would tell the whole world ASAP, look, this is going on, help us contain it. China denied it up until it had started spreading to other countries. I mean, the exact timeline is a little fuzzy. But the sort of culture war now is that so much of the materials that we're going to need throughout the whole world are made in China and India and these other areas. There's going to be a lot of issues getting the resources and supplies that are needed. Anyways, got 5 people in here now. I could get somebody else in the if anybody else wants to get on the video, you don't even need that good of a mic or anything. But I could send you a code or a link, I guess. If anybody wanted to get in here and talk about anything, or if anyone has a regular question, cool, we can chit chat. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up in just a minute. 4 people. All right. Cool. Well, you few people who got into it, thank you for joining me. And stay tuned. Hit me up in the group or whatever. And we'll do some more of these. But I'm glad anybody's good. Trump questions. Sure, Alice. Most shipments come on plane cargo as well as my boss have been nonstop explaining the situation. Well, yeah, that's tricky because it's not just the cargo issue, it's the consumption issue. Because it's a lot worse in China. So it's an issue if China is going to consume all of the products that they're manufacturing that would normally come here, if they're going to consume them themselves. What are other books? Other books I recommend? Canada here. I think that's Alice. Um, I made I put together I made a post a little bit ago about some authors, and I posted some pictures of some books that I recommend. Also, if you search in the group for 100 books, later I can put up the list again. I've been trying to put together like a detailed list of some of the books that I've read and that I would recommend. Elizabeth, do you have anything to narrow that down? Because I could recommend dozens of books. But one of the best places to start, if you haven't already, is Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, if you haven't read that, and his other two books. He also has a YouTube lecture series that he put up not too long ago. Yuval Noah Harari, mainly Sapiens. Trump is not a shipping clerk to get supplies to hospital, he said. Right. True. And look, I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but there's going to be rhetoric issues. And I think we just need to support whoever is trying to get things done in whatever way that they can and we can. And yeah, that is one thing that's like kind of grinding my gears today is all this like, oh, Trump, hating on Trump, misrepresenting what he said. I'm not saying you, Alice, necessarily, but he's like 71 years old. He's got millions of dollars. The point is, he could just throw in the towel. I mean, I know, sure, he's got his reputation to think about or whatever, but he's working around the clock to get things done. And also, I am a little impressed by signs that administration is able to make it run a little bit more like a business, and that they can get through a lot of the regulations, because that's usually what holds things back. Yes, Robert Greene, I definitely recommend. I'm big on audiobooks. But yeah, right now, get what books you can. As far as I know, they're still doing all the shipping, at least. There may be some areas of the world, like Italy, where they're having shipping issues, but most of the world, we're still getting all the shipping. So if you order books, that's great. Otherwise, use YouTube. That's the one. I use YouTube for everything, for my TV. I get the unlimited, use it for a lot of audiobooks that are on there. Use the library app if you have access to it, but also LibriVox. If you don't know about LibriVox, I can send this information again, but because I forget how to spell it. Okay, I can pull it up on my phone. LibriVox does let's see. Doesn't really show. Okay. Anyway, this is just my laptop camera, but LibriVox does, what do you call them? Royalty-free audiobooks. Basically, they get volunteers to read the books that have been, in print for a long time, so they're royalty-free. Usually, they're about 100 years old or older. Who's the third person? It's okay, but I'm wondering. Looks like there's one other person than Elizabeth and Alice. Anyway, so LibriVox, you can get all the classics or all the royalty-free books for free, and that works anywhere in the world, whether it's on the app or on their website. But yeah, so use the free resources that you can. Of course, there's Audible, and I have put a bunch of lists on the Facebook group. I can put that up again, and I might send it to you personally. But also on the post I made today, I just put up some of the authors that I like most. Definitely the book I think everybody should read at least once is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It is a Holocaust book, so it has a little bit of it can be hard to read in that regard, but it's surprisingly easy to read overall and just a really good book. I was gonna pull up my little list I made. Where's the little list I made? Oh yeah, Noah Yuval Harari, or I don't know why I say Noah, maybe because I'm American, but Yuval Noah Harari, definitely. Jordan Peterson, I like. Even if you don't like Jordan Peterson, I think it's good to maybe even better or more important that you listen to him or read his books, because it'll help sort out that moral foundation like I was talking about earlier. I have Carl Jung on my list that I like to read, but it took me about a year to halfway understand what he says. Well, mostly. I would say halfway now. I have it mostly almost totally figured out. But anyway, Viktor Frankl, Robert Greene. I really like the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr. and some of the books he's put out. Also, Ryan Holiday, I like. And there's some others, but that should get you started. Like I said, I put up a list of a few dozen. It's good too, like sometimes for filler, I'll read or hear Will Durant, who has he put the story of civilization and the story of philosophy into like a more narrative form. So Will Durant, definitely for the history aspect. It's very important to have a foundation of history, and he does all history. I don't know if he didn't really get into American history other than some of the philosophers, but it's mostly world history up until 1700s, 1800s, other than the history of philosophy, which he does all the way up till about the present day. Anyway, I guess I'll wrap this up, and yeah, I'll probably do more of these, but probably with more plan it out a little bit more. All right, thanks everybody. How do I end this? Leave studio.